The way he said it, it was so calm, like he was just telling me he was out of milk. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Dante's more of a father to me than you'll ever be." And you know what the crazy part is? It wasn't even a fight. We weren't screaming at each other. It was just a Tuesday. And that one sentence, it blew my whole world up. You spend years, right? Years of your life. You bust but you sacrifice, you do everything you can for your kid. You think you're doing the right things. You're building this little human up, teaching him how to be a good person, making sure he has every opportunity you never had. And then he just tells you you're irrelevant. That some guy who's been around for, 2 years, is a better dad. It's like the last 17 years of my life just didn't matter. I'm telling you this now because I need to know if I'm the monster here. Because I snapped. I saw red. And I made a decision that day that changed everything for us. I took away the private school, the car, the credit card. I cut all off. And I'm still not sure if I was right to do it. It's been a long road, a really long road. And a lot of things came out in the wash. My ex-wife, Veronica, she went ballistic. My son, Marcus, he went from shock to pure, unadulterated rage. And I just stood there, holding a box of all my sacrifices, and realized they were worthless. So here's the context. My son, Marcus, he's 17. He's a good kid, smart, a little naive, maybe. I'm a software engineer, so I've always made a good living. I pay for everything for him. His private school tuition, his car insurance, his phone, a credit card for gas and emergencies. Basically, I've got him covered. I've always thought that was my job, to give him a leg up, to not let him worry about money while he's trying to figure out who he is. My ex-wife, Veronica, and we've been divorced for about 5 years now. It wasn't a messy split, not really. We just grew apart. But she's always had this kind of new agey, holistic vibe. The kind of person who thinks crystals can solve your problems. And about 2 years ago, she started dating this guy, Dante. Dante, he's a piece of work. He's a life coach, an influencer, you know the type. He's got that whole minimalist, free spirit thing going on. He drives a vintage VW bus worth a lot of linen. He's the kind of guy who talks about manifesting your best life and how money is just an illusion, all while living in Veronica's house and not having a job. My son, Marcus, for some reason, just idolized the guy. He'd come over on my weekends and tell me all about the deep conversations he was having with Dante. How Dante gets him. How Dante is woke. I just kind of gritted my teeth and smiled, you know? What was I going to do? Tell my kid the guy's a grifter? He wouldn't have listened. I mean, I get it. To a 17-year-old, a guy who tells you not to worry about real-world stuff is a hell of a lot cooler than the dad who tells you to study for your AP calculus exam. I try to be the cool dad sometimes. I'd take him to concerts, get him the latest gadgets. But at the end of the day, I was still the one paying the bills. And that makes you the uncool parent, right? The one with expectations. The one who's always talking about college applications and financial aid forms. This particular Tuesday, Marcus came over to my place to grab something. The usual handoff, you know? He was just, I don't know, he seemed different. Tense. And then he starts talking about some big family trip Veronica and Dante were planning. Apparently, they were going to go on a soul-cleansing journey across the country in Dante's bus. And he was just so excited about it, talking about how he was going to take a gap year, about how college was a trap, and how he was going to find himself on the road. I try to be reasonable. I said, Marcus, you're in the middle of your senior year. Your grades are important. We need to focus on getting you into a good school, not driving around the country in a bus that's probably going to break down in Kansas. And that's when it happened. That's when the bomb dropped. He just kind of looked at me with this blank expression like he was delivering a pre-written speech. And he said, Dante says you're a walking stereotype of what it means to be a man in this society, all about work and money and no soul. He's a better father to me than you are. He understands me. Just like that. The words hit me like a physical blow. A good punch. Because he didn't even yell it. He just said it. Like it was a fact. Like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And in that moment, all I could think about was every late night I spent at the office to make sure I could pay his tuition. Every weekend I spent at his soccer games. Every time I said no to myself so I could say yes to him. And for what? So he could tell me I'm not a father? Something inside me just broke. All the patience I had, all the understanding, it just evaporated. It was gone. I looked at him, at my son, and I just saw a spoiled kid parroting some nonsense from a guy who'd never worked a real day in his life. And I felt this cold, calm fury spread through me. I said, "Okay, Marcus, you think Dante is more of a father to you? That's fine. I'm glad you have him." And Marcus, he just kind of smiled. He thought he won. He thought I was going to just take it. So from now on, Dante can be the one to pay for your private school. He could be the one to pay for your car insurance. He could be the one to give you spending money. Because if I'm not your father, then I'm not responsible for any of that, am I? The smile just slid off his face. The color drained out of him. He started stammering, "Wait, Dad, I didn't mean. It was just a figure of speech." "No," I said, and I heard my voice. It was this low, controlled tone I didn't even recognize. "No, it wasn't a figure of speech. You meant it. You said it. And words have consequences, Marcus. They're not just things you throw out there. They mean something." I went to my desk, grabbed the folder with all his school and car documents, and I started pulling everything out. I found the tuition statement and said, "I'm calling the school in the morning. Your last day is Friday. You can transfer to the public high school." I found the insurance card for his car, the one I bought him for his 16th birthday, and I'm canceling this policy. You can ask Dante to put you on his plan. He didn't even own a car, and I knew it, but I said it anyway. I was so angry, I was on fire. Marcus, he just stood there. He was just so shocked. He was finally starting to realize the depth of what he'd said, the truth of what he'd done, and I could see the panic starting to set in behind his eyes. The realization that this wasn't a game, that I wasn't bluffing. This wasn't some kind of emotional manipulation to get him to say he loved me. It was just the truth, the cold, hard consequence of his words. He started to cry, real, ugly tears, and he was yelling, "You can't do this. I'm your son. It's your responsibility." And the hypocrisy of it it infuriated me even more. "I'm your son when you need something," I said. "But I'm just some guy when you're with Dante. You made your choice, Marcus. Now you have to live with it." He just stood there, crying and shouting, "It's your responsibility." But I couldn't look at him. I felt this incredible emptiness, like a hole had just been torn in me. I told him he needed to go home and think about what he'd said, and he stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled on the wall. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the couch, replaying his words over and over. "Dante's more of a father to me than you'll ever be." It was a simple sentence, but it was like a neutron bomb. It left the house standing, but it incinerated every single good memory I had of us. Every late-night homework session, every soccer game, every time I taught him how to change a tire or balance a checkbook. The phone rang the next morning. I knew it was Veronica before I even looked, and she didn't disappoint. She launched into a full-on tirade. "I can't believe you, Mark," she screamed. "You're going to abandon your son? Is this what you think being a parent is?" I held the phone away from my ear for a second. The sound of her voice was like a physical assault. "Veronica," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "He told me I wasn't his father. You can't have it both ways. I'm either his father, with all the responsibilities that come with it, or I'm not." He made his choice. And that's when she went into full-on new agey, holistic nonsense mode. "This is emotional abuse, Mark. You're manipulating him. Dante says this is a classic patriarchal power play. You're trying to control him through money because you're threatened by his freedom. Patriarchal power play." I could almost hear Dante whispering the phrase into her ear. It was all his nonsense, his ideology, and it just made me angrier. "Veronica," I said, my voice low and steady, "I'm not threatened by his freedom. I'm threatened by him being a 17-year-old kid who thinks his life is a walk in the park because you and Dante are feeding him these fairy tales. He doesn't understand the first thing about responsibility, and you're not helping him learn." She went silent for a moment, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she got it. But then she hit me with a real venom. "So, this is about Dante? Are you jealous? Because let me tell you, Marcus respects Dante in a way he'll never respect you. Dante gives him wisdom, not just money." My blood went cold. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. I give him money so he can go to a school that will actually get him into college. Veronica, not a seminar on how to manifest his dream car. I give him money so he has a future, something you and Dante seem to be completely ignoring. I hung up before I could say anything else. I needed to. I couldn't listen to any more of it. I felt bad. I did, but this wasn't about me anymore. It was about teaching Marcus a lesson that, apparently, no one else was going to teach him. I had to stand my ground. The next couple of days were a blur of passive-aggressive texts from Veronica. Marcus is so distraught, Mark. He can't even focus on his homework. You're hurting him. Or, I can't believe the man I married would do this to his own son. Then came Friday morning. My phone started blowing up with texts from friends and even some coworkers. Dude, what's going on? Is this true? That's messed up, man. I had no idea what they were talking about. I rarely use social media, but I logged in and there it was. A long post from Marcus. It was this emotional, dramatic rant about how his loving father had abandoned him. He wrote about how I was a man so consumed by capitalism and a need for control that I was punishing him for choosing a path of spiritual enlightenment. He even posted a photo of himself looking all sad and forlorn, with Veronica's arm around him, and the caption was something like, "So grateful for the people who truly love and support me, especially my mom and my true father figure, Dante." I felt sick. My stomach dropped, because now it wasn't just a private family matter. It was out there. It was public. And the comments, oh man, the comments were brutal. People I knew, people I worked with, they were all chiming in, talking about what a monster I was, how money isn't everything, and how I was destroying my son's future. He was playing the victim, and he was doing it so well. I felt a sense of rage I hadn't felt before. He wasn't just mad at me. He was trying to publicly humiliate me, to turn everyone against me. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I just sat there and let the feeling wash over me. I felt like a failure. But a part of me, that same cold, quiet part from the other day, was just resolute. He wants to play games? He wants to make this public? Okay, we can do that. Later that afternoon, the phone rang. It was Veronica again. Her voice was different this time. It wasn't hysterical. It was cold and controlled. "Mark," she said, "I've spoken to a lawyer. They've reviewed your recent actions and Marcus's testimony. What you've done, it's considered emotional abuse and financial abandonment. You're in a lot of trouble. We're filing papers. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." And with that, she hung up. My heart was pounding. This wasn't a game anymore. This was a war. And Marcus, he had just chosen his side. He had chosen the side that was trying to destroy me. This was the point of no return. I knew it. This is where things went from a slow burn to an absolute inferno. The legal threat, that was the first time I felt true panic. Not just anger or hurt, but genuine, cold dread. I knew Veronica was serious. And I knew that in a divorce, especially one where you have a child, the legal system can be unpredictable. I called my own lawyer. I explained the whole situation, from Marcus's comment to Veronica's call. He was a no-nonsense kind of guy. He listened to me without interruption, then just said, "Hold your ground. Don't respond to their texts. Don't engage with Veronica. You did what you had to do. You're not legally obligated to pay for private school or a car. You pay your child support. That's it." His confidence helped, but it didn't stop the feeling of dread. I was being painted as a villain. To my friends, to my coworkers, and now potentially to a judge. I felt completely isolated. This wasn't about me being a bad dad. This was a tactical strike. Veronica was using Marcus as a weapon, and Dante was the one supplying the ammunition. A few days later, my phone rang again. It was a restricted number. I almost didn't answer it, but for some reason I did. "Dad," it was Marcus. His voice was small, hesitant, not the angry, defiant teenager I'd seen a few days earlier. "What do you want, Marcus?" I said, my voice probably colder than I intended. I can't go to school," he said, his voice cracking. "Veronica tried to enroll me in the public high school, but it's a whole process. I missed 2 days already, and she won't pay for the private school. She says she can't afford it." I felt a pang of something, not sympathy, not really, more like a grim satisfaction. "And Dante?" I asked. I thought he was a real father figure. "Can't he help you out?" It was a long pause. A really long pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. He said that's your job. That he's more of a spiritual father. He doesn't believe in paying for things that are superficial. I almost laughed. The audacity of it all. This guy, who preached about manifesting abundance, wouldn't even pay a dime for my son's education. He was all talk. And Marcus was finally starting to see it. Marcus, I said, I told you. Words have consequences. You said I wasn't your father. So I stopped acting like one. That's the consequence. But I was just mad, he pleaded, and now the tears were back. I didn't mean it. I was just repeating what Dante said. He told me to say it so you would back off about the gap year. My heart sank. He was just a kid. A naive kid who had been manipulated by a master manipulator. Dante wasn't just a freeloading life coach. He was actively pitting my son against me. He was actively trying to destroy our relationship for his own gain. So he put you up to it. I asked, my voice rising a little. The betrayal. It wasn't just Marcus's anymore. It was Dante's. He was poisoning my son against me. He said if I could just get you to stop paying for everything, then you'd have to let me do what I wanted. He said he'd teach me everything I needed to know, and that college was just a waste of time. He told me you were just jealous because you couldn't be like him. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream. At Veronica, at Dante, and honestly, a little bit at Marcus. But I didn't. I just stood there, holding the phone, and listening to my son's voice, a voice that sounded like it was coming from a very, very dark place. And now, he continued, his voice barely a whisper. Now Dante and Mom are saying that I made everything up. They're saying I'm a spoiled brat and that I brought this on myself. Dante said he's not going to be a spiritual guide for someone who creates so much negative energy. They're leaving. They're taking the bus and they're going on their trip. And they're leaving me here. He was crying again, but this time it sounded different. Not like the angry, defiant tears of a week ago. This was the sound of a kid who had just had his entire world come crashing down. He had been so sure of himself, so sure that his mom and Dante were on his side, so sure that they would be there for him, no matter what. And they had abandoned him. Just like that. I took a deep breath. This was it. This was a climax. The moment of truth. He was calling me not because he was mad or because he was trying to manipulate me, but because he had nowhere else to go. He had pushed everyone away, and now he was alone. And in that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. I could either be the monster he thought I was, or I could be the father he still, somewhere deep down, needed me to be. Marcus, I said, my voice steady, go pack a bag. I'm coming to get you. And I hung up the phone. I didn't wait for his response. I didn't need one. I got in my car and I drove. I knew this was the beginning of the end of this nightmare. But I also knew it was the beginning of something new. Something that would hopefully be more real, more honest. My drive to Veronica's house was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't know if Marcus would even come with me. And I didn't know how I would handle seeing Veronica or Dante. But I knew I had to go. I had to be the adult in the room. I had to be the father, the real father. When I pulled up to the house, Dante's vintage VW bus was gone. The driveway was empty. It was like they'd never even been there. The house looked quiet, too quiet. I walked up to the door and knocked. A few moments later, Marcus opened it. His eyes were red and puffy. He had a small duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, and then down at the floor, and he started to cry again. I didn't say a word. I just put my arm around his shoulder and walked him to my car. He got in the passenger seat, and I got behind the wheel. The car ride home was completely silent. I didn't push him. I didn't lecture him. I just drove. I let him sit with his emotions. I let him feel the weight of what had happened. He had been so sure of himself, so sure that he was on the right side, and he had been so wrong. When we got back to my place, I helped him bring his bag inside. He just stood in the living room, looking around like he didn't know what to do. "You're home, Marcus," I said quietly. "You can take a shower, or you can just sit. Whatever you need. We'll talk when you're ready." He just nodded, tears still streaming down his face. He went and sat on the couch, and he sat there for a long time. I made him a bowl of cereal, and he ate it in silence. A few hours later, he finally looked at me. "I'm so sorry, Dad," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." And in that moment, all the anger, all the hurt, all the betrayal, it just melted away. It was replaced by this overwhelming sense of relief. He got it. He finally got it. He saw the truth. He saw that Veronica and Dante were never his real support system. They were just a mirage. They were there for the good times, for the fun and the spiritual journeys. But the second things got real, they vanished. We talked for hours that night. I told him about the sacrifices I had made for him. Not in a resentful way, but in a factual way. I told him how much it hurt to hear him say what he said. I told him that I always loved him, no matter what. And he just listened. He listened and he cried. And he told me everything. He told me how Dante had been feeding him this nonsense for months. How he had been encouraging him to get a gap year, to explore his true self. How he had been telling him that I was just a walking stereotype of a man, trapped in a corporate cage. He told me that if I could just get you to stop paying for everything, then you'd have to listen to me, Marcus said. He told me it was the only way to gain my independence. And then, when I told him what happened, he and Mom they freaked out. They said I had ruined everything, that I was a burden on their spiritual growth, that I had manifested bad karma. They just left. It was a tough conversation, but it was an honest one. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually talking to my son, not a stranger parroting some guru's nonsense. Over the next few weeks, things slowly started to get back to normal. I got him re-enrolled in private school, but this time I made it a condition. He had to get a part-time job to pay for his car insurance and gas. He was no longer getting a free ride. He had to learn the value of work. And he did it. He started working a local coffee shop, and he was proud of it. He was proud that he was contributing. He was learning. The legal threat from Veronica never went anywhere. Her lawyer probably realized she didn't have a case. I did get one more call from her a month later. She was hysterical. Dante had left her in the middle of their spiritual journey with all their money. She was stuck in some town in Nevada, and she wanted me to send her money for a plane ticket. I hung up. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. Marcus and I still have a lot of work to do. Our relationship isn't perfect. It's not like the old days, but it's more honest now. We talk. We actually talk. We talk about school, about his job, about his friends. We talk about the future, about college. He's looking at state schools now, more financially responsible options. He's realized that a degree is a key to freedom, not a cage. I guess the moral of the story is that some lessons are hard. Some lessons are painful, but they're necessary. Sometimes you have to let someone fall to let them learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. And sometimes you have to be the one to let them fall. Not because you're a monster, but because you're a father.